Are you lost in the chaotic whirlwind of day-to-day busyness? Do you yearn for a deeper sense of meaning and purpose in your life? Welcome to Be You, Your Story, Your Purpose, the podcast dedicated to empowering women on their journey of self-discovery and finding their true purpose through their own story. I'm your host, Brenda Simmons. Welcome to the Be You, Your Story, Your Purpose podcast. Today, I have two very special guests in person with me. These are my daughters. This is Jillian. Say hello.
Hi.
And Jorja.
Hello.
So we are on vacation for the Christmas holiday. And I thought it would be really fun to do a podcast with them because they've been such a big part of my life, obviously. And we decided that we wanted to talk on the importance of building relations with your children and and we're going to bear all, not holding back. So they can tell you some of the things I've done wrong, and hopefully I've done a few things right. But their relationship with me is one of the things that I hold very dear, and I'm so glad that they agreed to do this with me. So let's take a minute and just each of you tell our audience a little bit about yourself. So Jillian, you go first.
I am 23. I live in South Carolina. I recently moved to South Carolina, like a year and a half
ago?
That's crazy. A year and a half ago, kind of just picked up and left. And it's been great. I'm almost done with school, getting my degree in special education. And yeah, that's me. I am 18. I live in Logan, Utah, because I go to Utah State. And that's pretty much it about me. Just going to college.
Okay, so Jillian is my oldest child, and Jorja is my youngest, and they have a brother in the middle. He calls it girl sandwich, which was a true thing. And all right, so my first question to you guys is, tell me a little bit about the relationships that we have within our family. You can talk to, with each other or with your brother Logan, and maybe how that's different between your relationship with your dad and I.
Okay, George, you want to go first? Do you think of something? So I think, Georgia's like my best friend, okay? Me and Jorja have been through it all together. I call Jorja, I swear we talk on the phone maybe 3 times a week or so on a good week.
Yeah.
Logan is also one of my favorite people ever, my brother, but he's not the type to talk on the phone a lot. But when we do talk, it's like for 3 hours and it's like no time has passed. My relationship with my parents has evolved a lot through the years. I feel like now they're more now that I'm older, they're more like mentors and friends, if that makes sense. So I talk to them a lot too. We have very close relationships within our family.
Oh, I would say the same thing. Like, my siblings are definitely my best friends. And even like my brother Logan, even though I live away from him and he doesn't talk on the phone, like just like Jillian, he will like if we initiate it and call him, he'll talk for like 4 hours and won't want to hang up.
It's so hard.
And it's very funny. But I think like with my parents as well, they're more of like friends now. They're still like that respect as them like being my parents. But I think I call my parents most out of everyone.
Daily.
And
Same.
It's a daily thing.
Same.
And I think it just comes from being older and we kind of already had that respect, and then you just get more mature and you just become friends.
Okay, but it wasn't always like that.
No.
I mean, when you guys were little, you certainly had your differences. Jillian, why don't you talk about growing up and how that worked with your brother?
So me and my brother are very different. I am like a very high maintenance, very anxious human being. And so Logan will tell these stories, and I don't even remember being like this, but knowing how I was, it makes so much sense. But for example, I guess I was like, I love them so much. My biggest fear was them like getting kidnapped underneath like my supervision because I started babysitting them
Yeah.
at like age 8, which my mom says she always regrets leaving me home.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that.
Oh, I'm not really. You said we were gonna bear it
Yeah.
off.
Yeah.
We all make mistakes. I've had my mistakes too. But looking back, I'm like, yeah, that was really young to do that. But it was necessary. I totally get it. They were both working full time. I have respect for that. And anyway, so the parents would leave, and I would do something like go and close all the curtains because I was so afraid of someone coming in. And like if a car drove by, I would be like, everybody get down, everybody hide. Like I was just that terrified and that anxious. And so Logan thought that was the dumbest thing ever. And so he would just be like, oh, I'm gonna go surrender myself to the bad guys. Like, and that would freak me out. And so me and Logan fought over everything when really a lot of my actions were just out of my own anxiety. Yeah, you can probably speak more to that too.
Georgia ended up being the middle person.
Mhm.
Yeah, I was in the middle of all of that because growing up, I had a good relationship with both of them. But like, I mean, we still had our differences. So I was in the middle. But I found that I had to take Jillian's side because I could easily apologize to Logan and he would still be my friend. But Jillian, if I took Logan's side, Jillian wouldn't talk to me for 2 days. So I kind of had to like go to Logan and I'd be like, hey, like, I hope you know that like I actually agreed with you, but I had to take Jillian's side. I actually thought she was being dumb too.
But you do understand that
No,
like
I
a lot of
totally
my
get it.
actions and things like that came from me being such an anxious child.
No, and I
That
can
was
totally see that.
that was a lot of my problems, and my mother can speak to that too.
Mhm, for sure. So how did that all change with you guys? Because now you guys are super close.
Honestly, I think moving across country,
So tell us about that.
you go first. I've talked a lot.
You both have.
Well, what was I? I was 12. How old were you?
I was 17.
17, and then Logan would have been 13 or 14
Yeah.
when we moved.
Mhm.
We moved, so we lived in Missouri, and then we picked up and moved to Utah. And we lived in like some friends' basements, and it was kind of this what? It was
No.
kind of like this in between, so we weren't really trying to make friends, and we were very lonely. And we learned just to become friends with each other. And like it was the main difference was in Jillian and Logan, because I was already friends with them, but our friendships just grew more. But
We were
Jillian
more
and
like a
Logan-
trio instead of like two separate.
Yeah, exactly.
But it was good. And like keep in mind us moving from Missouri that like we lived there for how long?
12 years.
We lived
That's
there
where
for
you grew
that
up.
was like our childhood and everything we knew. And like we all expected to go through all schools there and everything and then like leave there to go to college. It ended up being exactly what we needed because, God leads us where we need to go. But it was not easy. And even after we moved, because we were, like Georgia said, we were in those friends' basements for what, 4 or 5 months?
Yeah.
They were going to a different school there, and so that's why you guys were trying to make friends, and I don't know what I was doing. I was just in my own
You were
world.
finishing up school through homeschool.
Oh yeah, I switched on my high school to online because I wasn't about to go start over at a new school my senior year. And then we moved to this house that was really little. We always used to joke like we could have people over and they could stand at the front door and we could give them a tour just by standing at that one part. Like, hey, there's that room, that room, that room, that room. So because of that, we were closer together, literally, like literally closer together. There was no privacy. And so it's like if you don't get along, it's going to be miserable. So you better get along with each other. Yeah.
And even though that was hard, because that was hard
Yeah.
for your dad and I too,
Mm-hmm.
but I felt like at that time in our lives, it actually ended up being a really good thing.
Yeah, it was necessary.
Yeah, I know a person who says the bigger the house is, the more you lose your kids.
No, that's so true.
You know, and because you guys were right there, like we knew, you know, what you guys were doing
Well, and like
for the
if
most
even
part.
even something as simple as like if we were having like a really hard day and like crying in our rooms, it was very obvious
Everyone could
that
hear.
was happening. So we could be there for each other. But I can totally see that because I remember growing up going over to people's houses that maybe had bigger houses. And that's so true. Those families were definitely a lot more divided, and the parents had no idea where the kids were, what they were doing. And so, yeah.
And it became very important because those are some rough years.
Yes.
Those were some really, really tough years.
That's very
And
true.
just with mental health and dealing with friends and, you know, all of the teenage things. It was a hard move to go.
Yeah.
But like you, I feel like we grew a lot together as a family because of that
Definitely.
hardship. So do you want to add anything to that, Georgia?
No, I think you guys hit it.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so let's kind of get into some nitty-gritty, and I'm a little bit nervous asking this, but like what are some things that, you know, maybe stood out to you as, you know, maybe big mistakes that we made as parents? And then conversely, I know I'm putting myself under the bus here, but I mean, honestly, I kind of know what my mistakes are, and
Yeah, we've talked about it
we've
before,
talked
so
about it, and so it's not like you know,
yeah.
it is what it is. It's just part of life, and but I'd love to know maybe some of the successes and failures that we've had as parents, and maybe speak to how that affected you. Georgia, let's go with you first.
Failures as parents. Well, I think every parent has mistakes. I don't know, I can't really think right now. Well, I think there's a lot in the way that like, because we grew up Mormon, I think a lot in the way that you guys taught us was not good. Um, love you, Mom. I I think sometimes I don't know, but that was just the way that you guys also grew up, and so that's what you knew how to do. Just I don't know. Yeah. I don't know.
That was not specific.
I'm not sure what that.
But okay,
I'm trying
you
to-
take time to think and I'll go.
Okay,
Does that
yeah.
sound
I don't
good?
like being put on the spot
Yeah,
like this.
I can be put on the spot, so it's fine. Okay, I actually disagree with what Georgia just said as
Okay.
far as like religious type stuff. I mean, yeah, like it was like forced on us a little bit, but I know that it was like good intentions. But I feel like ever since moving to Utah where we moved, and um ever since like we moved into that house and everything, and you kind of like got to know us better, I feel like there was definitely a big push on like your own personal journey and like figuring that out. And I definitely felt like my parents were like, they taught me the tools. They gave me the tools to figure things out and like the tools to have a good relationship with Christ, have a good relationship with God. And then I think hold on, let me back up. They did such a good job giving me the tools. However, what I feel like has been hard recently for our relationship and for maybe your relationship with Logan is that Georgia's very active in the church and me and Logan are kind of like on our own journey, which we're very open about. Um, I've had a hard time with being like, okay, like you've given me the tools, like you want me to like go and figure this out for myself. But then I almost sometimes feel the disappointment of like not going the path that maybe you wanted me to go. And so I think like while does that make sense what I'm saying?
100%.
And I feel like that's been hard because there's so much more that I want to be open about, but I feel like I can't. But then that's what frustrates me because I'm like, but you gave me the tools to figure this out and to do it, and I'm doing exactly what you wanted me to do. But then I still feel like I can't talk to you about it.
Well, and I'll speak to that
Yeah.
because the position I'm in now as a new mom of adult children, like, is totally different from the relationship as teenagers or
Mhm.
children or infants. And it's hard. It's really hard
Yeah.
to let go of
Mhm.
that and to redefine your relationship in a way that works for both of you.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, there have been times when I'm like, I wouldn't say disappointment,
Yeah.
and so, but I also understand that that is an emotion, and those are my thoughts that I have to deal with. They really have nothing to do with you because
Mhm.
you are on your own journey. And
Yeah.
so I would just hope that you would take that as I'm working on it,
Yeah.
and no, in no way would I want you to feel like you couldn't confide in me, but
Mhm.
I also understand that, we're each kind of dealing with this journey differently,
Yes.
and that's okay,
Yeah.
because I have faith that, as we go through this, that we will get there,
Mhm.
and I think we've had a good enough foundation that,
Mhm.
we're going to navigate it,
Yeah.
so
Mhm.
did that,
No, that makes
yeah,
sense.
that
That
helped.
makes sense.
Yeah.
But I definitely feel like you guys did a great job of like preparing us for this stage of life.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Yeah.
think I'm sorry, I'm talking a lot. It just cut me off.
That's
Like,
okay.
you shut up. I think another thing, I guess most of the things that I'm saying, there's not like good and there's not bad because whatever happens, there's good and there's bad to both. There's good and there's bad to each situation,
Well, and there's
right?
different perspectives, and two things can be true.
That's true.
More than one thing can be true.
And so like let's
Yeah.
go back to when I like outed you to the kids when I was 8 years old. That was so hard. And I feel like I'm sure you've talked about your mental health on here and stuff.
Mhm.
There were like literally 2 or 3 years where my mother just stayed in bed and I didn't see her, which is totally fine. I've had those moments too, right? And she was going through her own thing. But I felt like in those moments, I was like raising myself as a little kid. Um, and while I am while that was really hard in the moment, and that was really hard growing up, you know this, and I don't think I would be like that if it wasn't for those experiences. And so that could be seen as like a negative and a positive. Like, yeah, it sucked so bad in the moment, but then at the same time, it's like, I'm actually really grateful for that. And also, like, I had a job starting at 14 because, like, I wasn't given an allowance. I wasn't given, like, money or anything like that. Like, which is fine, but you can probably speak to that too.
Yeah, I mean, I think you guys just raised us to be independent and to think for ourselves. Like Jillian was saying, like you gave us the tools to think for ourselves. And like I also had my first job. Like I was working since I was 8 with my mom, and
Yeah.
I got my first official job when I was 14. And
Yeah, we were taught like the value of hard work and the value of a dollar. Like, if
yeah,
you want this, here you go ahead, work. So,
And that was something that was super important to us. And speaking to my depression years, I have a lot of guilt. I have
and we've
tried.
talked about this before.
We
This
have.
is the first
No.
time that we're bringing it up.
And I've talked about it with my therapist, and I do a lot of work on myself because that period of my life is very painful for me personally, but also painful as a mom
Mm-hmm.
because I do feel like I failed in those
Right.
years, and trying to pick myself up out of that and feel like I have damaged you and put you on a trajectory, maybe wasn't the best,
Mm-hmm.
and I've the conclusion that I have come to is, number one, I was doing my very best at
Yeah.
the time. I really was. My best was really crappy,
But that's okay.
by my
That's
own
fine.
standards, but it was my best at the time. And every child in every family is going to go through things, and those are things that are going to affect you your entire life. And I mean, I went through in my birth family, and um, it's just kind of part of life,
Yeah.
and so the challenge for you then becomes all right, how do you process your own upbringing? Just like how have I processed my own upbringing?
Mhm.
And I was telling you, I think I was telling you this story. But I was really frustrated about some things that had gone on when I was a kid
Right.
and just kind of mentally berating my parents. Sorry, mom and dad, if you're listening.
It happens.
But it's just life. It's just what happens. Everybody does it, you know? And I remember driving down the road, just being so frustrated. And, this is when my life, kind of blaming, total victim mode. My life is the way it is because, or this mindset is the way it is because of the way I was raised. And I just had this thought come to me, they did their best.
Mhm.
And it was like, okay, they did their best. And I could accept that for what it is at face value. They really did their best. And then it becomes that, now what am I going to do with it?
Right. Right. No, that makes sense. That makes sense.
All right. So going forward then, what's as an adult, I mean, you've kind of said our relationship is more mentor friend. Like, how can your dad and I, as you guys become adults and are fully entrenched in that, be the best parent to you? What situation be?
I mean, I think my ideal situation is what it is right now. Like, I can call you guys just to talk, but I can also call you guys if I need advice. And that's what I like because I'm a talker. I like to talk to people. I appreciate that. Like, you're always, even when you're working, you're always down to answer my calls 24/7. So,
Pretty much. And if I don't give you the answer that you want, then you go to your dad.
Yeah, exactly. And we know, obviously, I think every kid has this, but I know if I need advice on this, dad's gonna give me the answer that I want to hear.
I go to which one I think
If I need this view supported, mom's gonna be the one I go to.
Just know that dad and I talk. So
know.
we know what you guys are doing.
For sure. But I feel like for me, especially like we said, this like little journey that I'm on and how I'm maybe not on the path that you were hoping, even though I'm like the happiest that I've ever been. I guess I just need you to like the things I tell you and the things I you to maybe think from the perspective of like, okay, this really is like the happiest she's ever been. This really is like, does that make sense?
Sure.
I need I don't know I don't honestly know how to say it because like it has been different lately, but I need, not that you judge me or anything, but sometimes I feel maybe not your disappointment, but I feel your sadness, right? And that's what makes me angry because I'm like, why are you sad? I am like,
because you're so happy.
like I am literally the happiest I have ever been in my entire life right now. So honestly, like sometimes I just won't confide in you and won't talk to you about things because I'm like, I don't need to feel sad. I feel great right now. Like does that make sense? Like
It does.
I don't need I don't need those vibes.
Well,
up
and
in my
again,
soul.
that's me processing my own because it's really when your child doesn't follow the same path or your ideal, air quotes path, it's hard not to think, what did I do wrong? And I know, and that's my own journey,
No, totally.
And so,
And not that like I'm gonna say one thing it's gonna fit and it's gonna fix that.
right.
But like you also have to remember, oh, like I raised them to be like this. Oh, I raised them
I remind myself.
I raised them to think for themselves.
Yeah.
And honestly,
question.
yeah, to question. And if
Mhm.
you had raised us to not do that and be like, this is the only way, this is the only way, I would be so miserable right now. Like,
Well, and that's the paradox because
Mhm.
your dad and I have always wanted you to think for yourself. And we grilled that into you all the time and
all the
work
time,
hard,
weekly.
and to, think and, look and be observant and all this stuff. And so that becomes the risk of doing that is knowing that, yeah, you may take a different path. And so yeah, sometimes it's been hard on me,
Yeah.
but I honestly wouldn't have it any other way either.
Yeah.
Because I know that growth comes by doing your own journey.
Mm-hmm.
Just like I have found that myself. Why would I take that away from you when that has been so important to me?
Mm-hmm.
But I've never journeyed that part with adult kids. And so I'm
Right.
trying to navigate my own feelings with that while allowing you to have your own journey too. So
Yeah.
it's a really weird situation, and it's one that has surprised me,
Hmm. No, I
as
could definitely see that.
a parent of adults.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah. How about you, Georgia? Any other thoughts?
I don't know. I don't really have these troubles.
Yeah.
Sorry. To be honest, like growing up, I kind of did my own thing. I was always outside, and it was like Jillian and Logan getting in trouble for fighting. And then like now it was like Jillian was getting in trouble because she was kind of starting to, yeah. And then
It's just so
good. Sorry. She was kind of starting to like do her own thing and like
Be
figure out
independent.
things, be independent,
Yes.
figure out things for her way. And like she was the oldest, like the oldest is always kind of the
Yeah.
parents are learning. And like by the time they got to me, the youngest, it was
They're
just
like,
like
do whatever you want,
I was
Georgia.
just there. Like I felt like I feel like my relationship is so good with everyone because like I didn't have those problems. I like not in the way that like, oh glory me, but like I didn't fight with you like I fought. I mean, we fought, but I didn't fight with
Yeah.
you like I fought like you and Logan fought. I didn't fight
Right.
with Logan like you and Logan fought. Like
Yeah.
like you and mom have fought, and I have never fought with mom that way.
Mhm.
And I don't think that's like I don't know. I think that's just part of being the youngest. My
makes sense.
experience was just different.
No, that makes
And
total
especially
sense.
with me, like my faith is very strong in the church, and I don't have that. Like we have that in common, and so I don't have that difference with
Yeah.
her.
Well, and I feel like that's been one thing that's been like hard about me and Georgia's relationship too, is because you even said to me the other day, sorry that I'm saying this, but
Okay,
she said to me the other day, she was like, Jillian, you have no idea how hard it is to be like the only kid that has stayed. And because she's like, it's hard for me to like not question things when like your siblings both are so much. And that made me really sad. But at the same time, I feel like I'm very supportive of Georgia's journey. Like she's going on a mission soon, and I'm so excited for her. I think that's amazing. And I hope that like I would never want to like influence you one way or another.
Oh yeah, and I totally get that. And like I'm so happy for you. Like I think like I'm able to see how happy you are.
Yeah.
And like I can see that. And I'm so excited for you. But
Because you've seen the not happy.
yeah, I've been right there for the not happy, and it's completely different. So yeah.
I love that. I love watching you guys banter, and that's one of my favorite things is not just the fun times, the hanging out, and I just love the banter, that we can joke around and have fun together. So I have a question for you guys. What are things that you have wanted to ask me?
In what way? In
I
what
don't know.
context?
I don't know. Just what I kind of just want to turn this. I've asked you guys a lot of questions. I want to turn this around and say, what do you want me to
So
talk
we
about?
kind of you and I kind of talked about this a little bit briefly earlier, but I want to know your feelings about me moving across the country from you.
So again, very mixed emotions there. On the one, I am a lover of adventure and a huge proponent of going out and finding your way, because that's what I did. I mean, I left home at 18 to go to school. I went back one semester and then I was gone. I didn't ever live with my parents again, except very, very
Yeah.
briefly. And so on the one hand, I just have been like, you go, girl, go out and slay it, because I know that you
Slay it.
right. Because I know that you can. And I
Yeah.
know that there are things that you can learn only by going out and doing that. And that, that time of life for me was so important. I mean, I was working for the Forest Service, walking solo cross country, and things that I learned doing, things like that, that I could not have learned living at home. I just wish that it hadn't been so far away. And that's been hard because there have been times man, I just want to hang out with you.
Yeah.
Just be with you, and I can't. And I want to be a part of, your life, and I want to meet your boyfriend and, share conversations with both of you. And that's been hard to feel like I'm missing out. I'm missing out on your life.
Yeah.
And I guess I just see that, my parents were always so far away. And I guess I didn't value that as much, they're, being close to parents. And I know, so on the one hand, I'm excited for you. And on the other hand, I'm just sad that you're so far.
Yeah, it wasn't like that, but I just went where I felt like I needed to go.
Yeah, and I'm so immensely proud of you for, following that call. And I mean, you've done so well out there, and I see how happy you are and how much you love it. And that makes me really, really happy for you.
Yeah. I know. I remember you said something the other day about how you were like, I feel like if we had moved somewhere that you actually liked, you would have stayed. But we've been sitting here talking about how like our move is why we have the relationships we
True.
have. So I just wish that that wasn't a thought that you had, because regardless, like I would have gone. I'm very in tune to like my intuition and like what I feel like I'm supposed to do. And if we had moved to North Dakota, California, Arizona, I still believe that I would have ended up where I am now.
That's fantastic. And I love that.
Yeah.
I love that you are confident enough in your intuition to go for it,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
and I mean, the opportunities that you've had in South Carolina, I don't think you could have had it
no,
anywhere else.
never.
Yeah. So thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
How about you, Jorja?
Like question?
Yeah.
I guess I'm a very bold person, so I kind of
Yes,
already
you are.
ask everything.
True.
I would think maybe like,
Or maybe if there's something that you feel like other people need to hear that we've already talked about, that's fine too.
well, just like I know that you kind of talked about this a little bit, but what do you think your biggest like thing is, not like failure as a parent, but like biggest like mess up was?
So failure.
For you.
Thank you. I sure love you for that. Well, definitely my depression years. I consider my biggest failure. However, I have tried to redeem myself a little bit, because I mean, than I was back then. And I've done a lot of work. And along the way, I think I probably pushed what I learned too much on you guys. But I was discovering all of this information, and I just was so excited about it. And like, like you can heal and you can control your life, and you don't have to be a victim. And I think you guys got tired of hearing
for
all
sure.
that. Yeah,
For sure.
And so I probably could have done that a little bit differently. But again, I was on my own journey, and and I didn't want you guys to go through life not knowing what I was learning, because I do think that self-care and working on yourself and your thoughts and your emotions and understanding that whole process is vital.
Right.
Because, and this is why, you may not need it right now, but someday you will.
Yeah.
And if I don't teach that to you, then I have failed. And so perhaps my methods of to learn it myself and navigate, what is the best way to teach it. But I would rather have taught it to you the wrong way and still got the information to you than not taught it at all.
That makes sense. And I feel like maybe I wasn't always super receptive to it. And
Part of it
still
too, your
am
dad
not
wasn't either.
because
Yeah.
well, it has nothing to do with my dad, but I'm very, though we're similar in some ways, I'm very different from you, and that like your ways of figuring things out is not like my way of figuring things out. Like you're like oh, let's do like breath work and write this down, write all my feelings on a plate, and I'm gonna go scream and break it on the side of the mountain. Like we're very different because I've
Yeah.
literally done that before.
Yeah.
And
And I think that's healthy to
yeah,
do
no,
that.
exactly. And so I feel like sometimes your delivery of things was like, well, this is the only way. Because that was your experience. But in my
Right.
head, I'm like, no, my way is the only way. That's what works for me. But really, it is the only way to ourselves, you
Right.
know? So,
Right. Well, and I think part of that learning is that's how you learn. Like, this is the way to do it because this is the way I've done it. And the more and more you learn and the more you share with other people and they share with you their experiences, the more you realize, oh, there's a million different ways and they're all right.
yeah,
It's
exactly.
just individualized.
Exactly.
Yeah. So if I knew what I knew now, going back, I would have taught you differently.
Yeah, no, that
I
makes
totally
sense.
would have.
And
But
I always felt bad, and I know you did too, about we were like, she gets so upset that we're not receptive to this. I was sitting there like staring at you as you're talking to me about this because I'm like, yeah, I'm not gonna do that. That doesn't
Yeah.
work for me.
Yes, same.
And you've definitely gone better because there were times where like we would call you and like vent to you and you'd be like, well, I have advice to give you, but you're not gonna listen. You're gonna think it's dumb.
I got
Yeah.
pretty cynical.
And I was like,
I've heard
and
that.
I was like, I'm literally calling you asking for that. So I don't really know why that's your response, but you've gotten better now.
Yeah.
You've gotten a lot better because that would piss me off, and that's what I would shut down and I'd be like, okay, bye. I don't want to
Yeah,
talk
so
to you
don't
right
do
now
that.
anyways.
Don't assume that they're going to react a certain way.
Yeah, right. Well, also because like sometimes things that you have taught me, even though they haven't like worked for me, they've led me to like figure out something else that does work for me. Like, okay, I like the way that she like dealt with that emotion, but this is how I'm gonna tweak it. You know, does that
Yeah,
make sense?
absolutely. Well, the method I've tried to do lately is just share this is what has worked for me. There are lots of other options. These are some other options that you can take. And it's your journey. You've got to do your own trial and error like I've done.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of been my approach lately. I hope that's been a lot better.
Yeah, it has. No, it's been great.
Yeah, it's been better.
Good. Okay. Any other questions you guys want to ask me? Oh my, go for it. We're bearing all.
Okay. So this is something that I was actually talking to my boyfriend about this the other day about how like this was very traumatic for me. Because we were talking about just like past experiences and how they've shaped us. And I have a very like complicated relationship with money. And I think I'm a spender, as you know. I'm a spender. And wait, are we running out of time? Are we
No.
okay?
We're good.
I'm a spender, and I think that's because I'm so afraid to like maybe accept that I don't have the money for the things that I want because we were not financially we didn't have a plethora of money laying around growing up, which is fine. We had a great childhood. But there's this one I was a very observant child, you know this. If there was something going on, even at the age of 8 years old, I could figure it out. And like I think there were a lot of things that you still don't even know, like how aware of things I was. And it's like affected me. So I have this one memory. Is it okay? You're okay if I share this?
I have no idea what it is. So yeah, just go for
I
it.
have this one memory of like, so I know that like during this time of mom's like whole depression stuff, like finances were really rough.
Yeah, we were on welfare.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, we were.
Yeah.
And so we had this thing called the the Carney Family Foundation where they would like provide Christmases for like low income families that were struggling. And I remember one day I was out in the garage and I was looking for like a tool or something. And I think I like or maybe not even a tool. I don't remember. But for some reason, like I saw these trash bags and I was like, oh, maybe it's in there. I don't remember what I was looking for, but it made sense that it might be in there. And I go and I see like all of these wrapped presents. And instead of our names on them, it said like girl age 8, boy age 6. And that like made me so sick because we would shop for the families, like in the Cardi Family Foundation. And so I remember being there. I remember feeling like when we would shop for those kids, I remember I would be like, oh my gosh, like this is just so sad. I'm so grateful that I'm able to help. But then when I was so young and I realized that like I was one of those kids, I felt so much shame about it. And I was like, oh my gosh, people were shopping for me and like feeling bad for me.
Mhm.
And I knew that things were bad because like I said, I could sense a lot of things, but I guess I didn't realize that they were that bad. I don't know. Did I ever tell you about that? That I like saw that and then I knew
No,
that?
but what you don't know is I did the shopping for that.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, so we always helped out. We always did the shopping. It was
Mhm.
but yeah, one year, and I didn't ever ask for it. The leader of it came to me and said, "Hey, could you use this?" And gosh, accepting help is one of the hardest things to do in your
So
entire
hard.
life.
So hard.
Because again, I felt like a failure and I was already super depressed and
Mhm.
already felt like a failure as a mom. And,
Mhm.
then I couldn't provide a decent Christmas. And it was
Mhm.
just so hard,
Yeah.
so hard. And so when the leader came to me and said, "Hey, could you use this?" I had to go. I honestly turned her down at first, and
Really.
I was like, "No, no, we'll figure something out." And she goes, "No, look at what I'll do is I'll give you turn in what you need, and I'll give you that list, and you can go shop for it, and you can do it yourself."
Oh,
And so all of that stuff, nobody shopped for you. It was me doing that
I had no
shopping
idea.
with the aid of the foundation. Yeah,
Interesting. Okay, I didn't know that.
Well,
yeah.
I think this just shows why communication is key in a relationship. Because you had trauma with this and she held the answer.
No, but it was just that I mean that experience was hard, but at the same time, I have definitely that was like even though I was so young, I always think back to that like whenever I'm struggling and I have to think like, okay, it's important to serve, but it's also like in order to serve with good intent,
Mhm.
you need to be able to accept service.
Absolutely.
And that's been hard.
That was one of the airplane going by. That was one of the big lessons for me was learning to receive like that. And nobody wants to be in that situation. I mean, it just sucked. It just, I felt humiliated
Yeah.
and I felt unworthy and so much shame.
Yeah.
Like so much shame. Like we
Yeah.
were on food stamps and I had my little food stamp card and I would take it to the store and like every time I swiped that card, it was just shame. And I didn't want anybody to see it. And
Yeah.
it was so hard. And emotionally that takes a toll on you when
Yeah.
you're feeling that level of shame that often.
Mm-hmm.
Like that has been really difficult for me to overcome.
Well, and like I promise I'm getting to a point.
Okay.
But we've also talked about how like there's that one situation where like I needed new tennis shoes and
You can tell this story because that was a hard day for me.
guys, this is like one of those things that I will carry throughout my whole life as like something that has affected me so deeply. Even though it's so simple, I needed new tennis shoes for school and we went to the store and I had a coupon and the coupon ended up not working and she spent like $40 on a new pair of tennis shoes or something like that. And we're walking out and I look over, we're like in the parking lot, and I look over at my mom, and there are just tears streaming down her face.
No, we didn't even make the purchase.
No,
I
we
couldn't
did.
do it.
We did.
I swear we didn't.
We did.
Okay.
I know for a fact that we did.
Okay.
And you were crying because we get in the car and I was like, what did I do? And you were like, I can't believe I just spent that much money on one pair of shoes. Like, I feel like I'm gonna throw up. And
It made me nauseous.
and I was like, and I think that's where my spending habits come from because I'm like, I'll never feel like that. I will never feel that level of sadness about buying something nice for myself. And I've got to work on that because,
That affects you in different ways.
it affects me in different ways. But
Yeah.
I guess my question of all of
Okay.
that, sorry. My question is, do you think that affected us like in a good way, or like how do you wish you had done things differently in that way? Or do you not wish that you had? Knowing how much I knew.
Well, that's what I was just getting to because I could not hide anything from you, and I knew I
Yeah.
couldn't.
It was
And
bad.
so, but I still wish that I could have explained things a little bit differently. But I don't know, it was so hard because especially you, Jillian, were so observant. Not that you weren't.
I was in my own world.
You were totally in your world.
Like, I didn't know
Right.
any of this was happening.
And Jorja's here like, was I bored?
And I like grew up just like playing outside, and it wasn't until I got older that like Jillian would tell me that we were like poor.
I'm glad
so-
you didn't feel that. Like she
Well, and I'm like, and I
Oh.
will say also, it was probably like now talking about it, it was probably so hard because you have like this little like 8-year-old that like is really like, not that I'm like super smart or anything, but I was like cognitively like observing things and
Mhm.
observing emotions going on,
Mhm.
but I didn't understand like why I was feeling these things, even though I was feeling what you were feeling. And so
Right. And so it made for a really difficult dynamic
Mhm.
because I think sometimes I overshared with you like I would an adult, which was not appropriate. But it was hard because then you would ask these adult-like questions, and then I knew that, if I gave you an adult answer, you wouldn't be able to assimilate it like an adult would. And so it was really hard to navigate that because I also knew that you could feel what I was feeling, and you knew that we were struggling. It took on a lot of that emotion
And I would
too.
get so mad when
Yes.
you would dumb things down for me because I would be like, no, that's actually not what's going on. Don't tell me that, like, you know
Right.
what
And
I
so
mean?
that was just difficult to know how to explain that.
So I guess
to
if
you.
I have a kid that is like that,
Yeah.
what advice would you give
She's
me?
an empath, like a really astute empath.
Yeah.
So
What
yeah.
advice would you give me to
That's a good question. I think it would be to share, like, since you are an empath, like if you had a child who's an empath, I would first explain I understand how you feel because this has been my experience,
Mhm.
And then I think it's asking questions.
Okay.
Like, well, what do you think about this? How do and I don't think I asked you enough questions,
Yeah.
To really gauge what you were able to handle and what you were observing. I just would assume things.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I didn't even know what an empath was.
Yeah,
back
these
then.
were different times.
Yeah, and so again, knowing what I know now, I would have asked a lot more questions to see
That's good to know.
where you were
Where
at.
my
you could hit.
understanding was.
Yeah.
That makes
Yeah.
sense. No, that's so true. I did understand a lot of things. Like I remember it was just so weird. Like I would just know things without like even having to think about them. Like I remember coming home one day and like it was when you were in the hospital and everything, and they were like, "Oh, yeah, your mom's in the hospital," and I already knew what it
I was in the
for.
hospital because I had a miscarriage.
I don't know if I was about to say that.
That's okay.
But I was like, oh, she's in the hospital because she lost a baby. And I remember that our neighbor was like trying to explain it to me. And I was like, I already know it's because of this. You don't have to dumb it down for me. Meanwhile, Georgie's just like, oh.
And I was just like, oh, my mom's in the hospital. I get to go have a sleepover with my best friend. I wish I could share anything, but I'm not a part of this.
I'm so sorry.
That's just how I was. I just didn't really, if there were problems like when we were teenagers in Utah and like you and Logan were going through mental health issues, I just never came home because I didn't want to like recognize that it was a problem because that's just how I live.
Right. But I think that also shows, you guys are all so different. And
We're
I
so
think that's
different.
pretty typical of, you're going to have, every child is going to be different. And so you have to meet that child where they're at and help them where they're at. So
No, that's true. Yeah, it's funny because I'll talk to Georgia and we'll still like talk about childhood things now. And she'll be like, "What? I didn't know that happened." And I was like, "You were there." And she was like, "Okay, I don't remember that."
well, I'm sure Logan was more oblivious than you were.
Yeah.
So Logan was even more in his own world.
I was just in a world of fun. I
Well,
just wanted to
Logan,
have
I feel
fun.
like so I was like up here, like literally thought that I was an adult because I was like having
And
all these
honestly,
feelings
that
and
was
these emotions.
most of the problem between you and Logan.
No, it
was you
was.
thought you were the adult and he was like,
But I think it was also because I felt everything that you guys felt, and so I just had a different understanding.
Yeah.
And then I feel like Georgia was aware, but she lived in a constant state of denial. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, I mean it's still a thing. I'm still working on it.
Well, and then Logan was just like true ignorance and oblivious. I feel like those were our levels.
But honestly, that was where you needed to be.
Yeah.
For where you were at, like you could not have taken all of those feelings that you were feeling, Jillian, and not done anything with them.
Yeah. Right.
Because they were such a big part of who you are.
Yeah.
And Georgia, your money has always been social time.
Yep.
And we knew if we needed to discipline you, it was to
take away
your friends. But that didn't happen very often because
I learned.
Because you learned very, very quickly, and I think Logan being in his own world was where he was able to, I mean, he's such a deep thinker too. I don't think he would be that without him spending time with himself like he had.
No, I agree with you.
So was it hard to parent three of us that were just so different? Like, did you kind of have to adapt and learn, like,
because you can't like be consistent with one parenting style.
We're all so different.
No, that's what I mean by meeting you where you're at. And it's that's also the fun of it. I know that I can do different things with, each of you feed me in a different way, if that makes sense,
Right.
Disciplining, like Logan was the hardest to discipline because he just freaking didn't care about anything.
Yeah, he would be totally content just like twiddling his thumbs and staring at a wall for 12 hours.
Oh yeah. And he didn't care if we took things away from him. And it wasn't until we discovered that we disciplined his stuffed dog that we finally made some headway with that. Like we could not discipline him. It didn't matter. He would laugh at us. And it was so infuriating.
Wait, what was the key way that you disciplined me? So George's was friends, Logan's was nothing, his stuffed animal. What worked for me?
For you, it was privileges, but you always had so much fear too. So
I know.
We kind of played a little bit.
Nice.
I know, but not in a mean or manipulative way.
He will take you to the doctor and you will get a shot if you don't stop.
Yeah, Dad did use that one.
Yeah. Yeah, really? That's why I said it.
That's horrible.
No, we got into Love and Logic because you were hard too, because you were so astute in your understanding, you would challenge us on a lot of things. And so a lot of with you, it was asserting that we are the adult and you are not.
Yeah.
And you do not get the same privileges because you have not earned them.
Yeah, that makes sense.
you know,
And
and
that was hard for me to understand because I did feel like an adult, like
yeah,
on the
Yeah.
same thinking level
but
as
as
you.
an adult looking at it, I mean, you also did not have the maturity
Yeah,
there
definitely.
to deal with things. And so yeah, that became
I remember
infuriating too.
I remember like growing up, I would be talking to mom and dad, and I would always address Logan and Georgia as the kids.
Oh yeah.
I
And
would
I would
call
have to
them.
remind you all the time, you are a kid too.
I would be like, are the kids coming home? What are the kids doing?" And
Mhm.
you'd be like, "You're right here. You're one of them."
Yeah, well, and that would piss us off. That would piss me and Logan off so
But like
much.
in my head, I was literally not thinking about like playing with you guys. I was thinking of like how to keep you safe.
And we didn't understand that. We were
Which
like,
is-
she's trying to control us.
Yeah, it was
No.
all control.
She
Yeah.
is like trying to be our parent, and she is our older
But
sister.
it was out
and-
of fear and love. It's what it was.
Right.
It really was.
No, I can totally see that now that we're talking about it. But
Yeah.
doesn't mean that we still love like didn't hate
I
it.
know,
'Cause it was
I know.
horrible.
Yeah.
I know. Oh gosh.
Well, that's fun.
Mhm.
It actually has been a joy and a pleasure to
Mhm.
raise you. And I'm Jillian gave me a shirt for Christmas 2 days ago that has the progression of terms that a child calls her mom. So it starts with mama and then mommy and then mom and then bruh. And I love that so much because I feel that way too, you know,
But
and
it
it's
totally,
really
even though
fun.
it's a joke, it's totally the progression of like caretaker, like, mom, like, and then it's like friend, homie.
Extra.
I will always be your mom,
Yeah,
though.
Yeah.
And so I'll
definitely.
always, impart wisdom that I have learned, and because I think that's an important part of being a parent. But I have really enjoyed the development of a friendship
Mhm.
too. So
Yeah.
that has been, um, it's brought me delight and joy.
Mhm.
So both of you do. So
Oh, how sweet.
sure love you guys.
We
So
love
thank you.
you.
Thank you for doing this with me.
Oh
This
my
has been
gosh,
really fun.
anytime.
So I hope that all of you listening have gained a little bit of insight, maybe at least into just me. Some of my mistakes and, and wins and things that I have learned being a parent over the years. Life isn't easy. It's not, you're going to have ups and downs and challenges. But I tell you, when you've got a tribe with you, it's even though that tribe can be infuriating at times,
Oh, family.
that it sure makes life sweeter, even though it can be hard. So anyway, sure love you.
Love you.
All right, for I guess until next time, just find that purpose in your story. It's there, and I know you can do it. Take care. Bye.
Celebrate your dreams, let them take flight, for you are a star, shining bright in every step you take. Let your